Hi everyone! Welcome to this very exciting video where I take you along on my first pottery taster sessions. I'm so excited to have you here, so let's get into it. I love all things that are creative, as you might do, and when I was a little kid I missed pottery week at school because I was on vacation with my family, and ever since then, which was about 20 years ago, I have dreamed of doing pottery. You might have too, and you might realise that it's quite an expensive hobby or trade. That's the one thing that has been keeping me away from trying it. I decided 20 years was enough time to let myself want something, and I saved up, managed to go on this pottery taster day in London. I was so excited. I had no idea how I was going to feel. I haven't touched clay for a very long time. During the lockdowns, I did try some air dry clay, which is not the same. So I was used to learning small things from that experience. Things like making sure your nails are cut down short so you don't leave nail imprints on the clay, because that was very annoying. Other than that, it's not the same as throwing on a wheel and using a big lump of clay, using a proper clay oven and things like that. I was very excited to go and try all of that for the first time ever. When I walked in, I was the first person to arrive naturally. I was working in the morning and decided to do it of an afternoon. The pottery studio seemed a bit like they were running behind, perhaps. They told me to get ready straight away, so I had to sort of wash my hands and put on an apron. I think that was it. I can't remember if there was anything else I had to do. And I just had to wait, basically, because the other members were not there yet. And then eventually the rest of the class arrives. It's only just 3 students in my class that I booked. We started off with what's called hand building. So they gave you a big lump of clay and you can build whatever you want. The thing is, I didn't have any time. It was a very busy time in my life. So I didn't do any research. I didn't have any preconceived ideas or anything like that. I wanted to kind of arrive and see what I felt inspired to make. There were things around us on the shelves that other students had made previous to our class, before our class. So we could have a kind of a guide. But other than that, there was no real guide. So I decided to simply hand build a bowl using the pinching method, which I found very satisfying. I'm a very tactile person, so it was really fun to just make something with my literal hands. And then as the time was running out, there was still about 10 minutes maybe, the teacher just said, "Oh, well, you've still got time left, you need to do something else." I said, "Oh, I would like to add a flower to my pot." So I started to make the petals, and I have a very specific way I wanted the flower to look. It's not necessarily a fine art sort of way that I wanted the flower to look. It's the way the flower half looks in my bowl is how I draw them. It's my illustrative and art style type of flower. The teacher came over and they started to mould the petals into more of a fine art style, which I didn't want, but it was too late. So half of the flower on my bowl looks like some kind of fine art thing that isn't my style. That is more like their colleague's style. And then the other half is how I did mine, like how I wanted mine to look. We were quickly moved onto the pottery wheel, and I didn't get to pat down the markings of the pottery tools that was left on my petals. I am a massive perfectionist. We could have just quickly brushed those over. It was very difficult to get the piece off the platform it was on and to write my name at the bottom, and I was being very careful. The same thing was not available to me for the hand thrown piece. Now in the hand thrown piece, it was extremely rushed. I presume we went into it late. You get 1 hour to hand build and 1 hour to throw, but throwing for the first time and having 1 hour is not a lot of time, because at first they just show you like the techniques on one piece. I think you ruin that one piece, or perhaps you put it to the side. I don't recall. And then you make a second piece, and that's the piece you get to keep. Now, with my wheel, it was extremely hard to get it centered. Everyone else was having an easier time, and I was being told by the teacher that I just need to center it, and that was it. Then when the teacher came over, they found it extremely difficult to center it. So it was actually just my wheel. I had a funny wheel that was harder to centre on as well. There were weird political jokes made, which I found strange. Sort of the class were just laughing like, ha, 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 kind of thing. All of us were being told things after the fact. So after a big mistake happens where you have to start again, fortunately I didn't have to start again, but to others, they would reveal, oh, well, you're not supposed to do that. So obviously we are all trying this for the first time. If we are not given vital information up front, there's no way for us to know it. So that was kind of a downside to the experience, I would say. Because the session ran out of time, the teacher just said, like he's doing us a favour and he was going to write all of our names on the bottom of the pottery. So we had to clean all of the wheel really good and well. And I did, and I got completely soaked. I noticed that the others didn't as much. I didn't really care about that. I don't mind leaving things clean once I'm finished. When I came back a few weeks later to pick up my pieces and to paint them, I realised that the teacher pinched the side of my pot and did not reshape it. So they obviously picked it up and it was a round shape, the top of my pot, which was really hard to do, by the way. I got a pretty good bowl. It was not symmetrical, but it was almost symmetrical. It was a round shape. I was trying really, 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 really hard to make something really good based on knowledge that I was given and the time that I was given. And that was important to me. So when we left, the teacher decided to pick the bowl up and deformed it slightly, guessing because they were in a rush. But all you have to do is just like pinch it back to shape. I wasn't really I knew it wouldn't be perfect, but that would have made it better. It was then cured like that. So that was quite disappointing when I arrived and I saw that. I was also super worried, guys, because I was like, oh my God, I'm rushing to put the petals on the hand-built one. I was thinking like, oh my God, it's going to fall off when you put it into the oven. It's going to fall off. I was mentally prepared for like a half fallen off petal situation with the hand-built bowl. However, that one came out perfectly and I was really, really pleased with it. And even the people in the pottery studio were staring at it, kind of giving me the look of like, oh, that's really interesting or unique or whatever. They said you have to pay extra if you want to paint a second piece of pottery. You also had to pay extra if you wanted to keep the two things you made on the pottery wheel, but I just kept the one. Anyway, so on the day they were like, oh, if you want to paint both pieces, you have to pay X amount. And I said, yes, that's fine, because I put a lot of effort into making both items. And because of my bowl looking different, the second bowl that went into the pottery oven, I just thought, oh, this isn't my bowl. Like they've labelled the wrong bowl because it shrunk a lot. Now, I do know that pottery shrinks, but because my hand-built one barely shrunk at all, I was really confused. I was thinking, how can one really shrink and the other not? But perhaps it's because the hand-built one was pretty thick. There was a lot of clay there. The thrown bowl, the walls of the bowl become more of a normal size once you make it on the wheel. So it did. I just realised, oh, the guys just pinched the side and also it has shrunk and therefore this is probably my bowl, yes. But I had to have a conversation with staff about it. It was a whole ordeal. Then when I went to the table, it was really fun. Like I really, really, really loved painting my pottery pieces. I think that I might have enjoyed painting the pottery more than making the pottery. I was just in a complete zen zone the entire time of making the pottery too. Because there's a time deadline, because there's so many things you have to do, you're just completely in the moment and you're very, very, because you have to be very, very careful not to ruin your project, you're just in the moment. There's like the right level of, fear and like desire and like concentration for everything to turn out how you want it to turn out, that you just completely into the moment, which I absolutely loved. Like I love it when creative things make you come into the moment in that way, which most creative things do, don't they? I took lots of time to paint my flower bowl and I was doing it probably too slow, to be honest, but I just didn't realise because I was just so into it. And then, or perhaps I did realise, but I just decided like this is the one I like more, this is the one that's more me, this is the one that I guess is ruined less, but neither piece is ruined. And so I just decided to put more effort into it, which is why I painted that one first. the thing with the paints is that they don't look anything like what it's going to look like when it's cured in the oven, again, when it's glazed. I think that's what they call it, which is fine. You have a little card that shows you what the paint swatches are going to turn out like. They do tell you have to do several layers, otherwise it turns out streaky as well, which is why it took so long to paint that first bowl. To be honest, paying for the extra time to paint the second bowl wasn't enough time, and I was extremely rushing at the very end. I had to rush the inside of the first bowl, and I had to rush the entire project of the second bowl in 20 minutes. So, but I just really didn't want to pay again for another whatever segment, because it would make it even more expensive, and at that point I didn't think it was value for money. However, maybe I should have, because I would have been happier with the end result. But because I could see the imperfections in both projects, and they were just my first projects, and I knew that, you know, they don't need to be perfect. I mean, they aren't perfect to my standard because of the nature of how the class went. So I just thought, you don't need it to be perfect, you just need them to be done, and you just need them to be your first projects. So that was kind of my train of thought, even though it's very hard for me to push myself to think like that. Absolutely, you know, terrible perfectionist. So my first idea was the flower was going to be bright orange, and then the rest of the bowl, like the inner of the flower and the rest of the bowl, was going to be bright yellow, because I love orange, I love yellow. They're some of the happiest colours to me. And then the second bowl, I really wanted to do a checkered pattern, which really in hindsight was not a good idea. I should have just done block colour inside and outside, or something a bit more simple, because, you know, it came out super streaky and I knew that. So I was thinking maybe the quirk of this piece is that the attraction of the piece is that it's handmade. You can see that. And that's because there are commercially made pottery pieces in stores where you see the paint strokes and they kind of want you to think it's handmade. So I thought, well, let's go with that direction, in that direction. And I put my absolute two favourite colours, which came out perfectly. That shade of green and blue, I just love. Apparently, if you have the same favourite colours as I do, which is green and blue, it's because you like the feeling of peace. They are the colours of nature, the sky, the ocean, and the foliage, the trees. So, I mean, I love nature, so it makes a lot of sense, but when I'm looking at the colours, it's not something I'm actively thinking. I just love that colour, those colours. So with the checkered bowl, I did the inside much more neat, because I started there than the outside. And that was another mistake that I wouldn't have known if I didn't do this pottery taster sessions. Because you run out of time, I just had to rush the outside, literally probably in like 5 minutes. And the inside was, you know, a few more minutes than that. So the lines are a lot neater. I think there's a bit more pigment inside, perhaps. Essentially start with the outside. If you're running out of time, you know, maybe do the checkered pattern on the outside, or whatever pattern that you've got your heart set on, and inside do one block colour. Just think, oh, okay, I really don't have time, so maybe do 2 block colours, and then just do a simple design on the front, just like a tiny detail. The reason why it was just like this is because you needed to do several coats of the same colour, or it comes out streaky. So even though it looks like it's covered when you are painting it, it will still look streaky after it's been glazed, after it's been in the oven again. This is hard to tell as someone who hasn't done this yet, and it might be hard for you if you've never tried it yet. So I tried to remember their instruction and just go over things as much as possible. Even though I did more than 2 layers on some parts, it still comes out streaky. So you'd probably need several layers. Overall, I'm really happy with my experience, even though it was not perfect. I still think it was a great way to have an introduction to the art form, and I really enjoyed the whole process of making with my hands, getting the experience to throw, and also painting. I think you should use my video as research and do your own research if it's something that you would like to do. Definitely make sure that your nails are cut very, very, very short, and just look up some methods such as score and slip. This is how I attached my flower petals onto the outside of my bowl. You essentially use a clay tool or anything with a pointy end, and you just make some marks on the clay, scoring the area that you'd like to stick the piece down onto, and then you also score the piece as well. And then you use something called a slip. So this is the clay mixed with a lot of water, and this acts as glue, and you kind of paste that on with your hands onto those scored areas, and then you secure it. And then you have to use a sponge or your hands to kind of smooth the areas so that everything blends together. Another tip would be just be aware of the time restraints if you are doing 1 hour sessions. This is not a lot of time at all, especially after they're done talking to you and giving you instructions. So manage your own expectations and go in with a project that will fit inside that time. Maybe think about a color combination before you go in that will help you get a excellent result at the end. Like I said, didn't do any research and did everything based off my instinct, which I do enjoy doing because then you are free to let your mind roam and see what you come up with in the moment. But if I was going again to do another clay session, I would definitely look up different color schemes and what kind of details I would want to add, whether that would be with paint or with clay, so that I'm more mentally prepared for the session and to get the most out of my time there. So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I've been really enjoying using my bowls. They are actually food safe. I'm very, very grateful that I got the experience. And really, I think if I went to a different pottery studio, they may not have let me be so playful with my pieces. I have done research into other courses in London after this experience, and they are far more expensive because they are longer term, and also they are probably more strict. So the fact that I got to hand build something that was quite whimsical and my color schemes were very bright and whimsical, I've noticed isn't really offered in all places, in all other pottery studios. So I'm seeing that as a really big positive as well. To be honest, I am quite torn because I think I could do this course again, even though I have told you the issues I had with it. Now that I'm prepared for those issues, I feel like I'd get more out of the sessions, especially now that I'm experienced. My course is actually very well priced for what it is. So given that it's a very expensive art form, I think I paid total around £80 for everything. So the actual day where you're making everything was £45. Then to have them bisque fired, so to have them cured so they go hard, that was £5. I'm not sure if they made me pay another £5 because I had 2 pieces. I can't find the details of that, but I think it was just £5. So that made it £50 total. And then when I arrived, I believe I paid £20 to paint both pieces, which in total is only about 75, I think, 75 or £80 in the end. Now that is a lot of money, but if you look at other courses in London, they are £500, £300, over £1,000. So I think I got a really good deal in terms of that, but maybe you get what you pay for as well. So because it's inexpensive compared to the other courses, I think it could be worth doing again and just making other fun, quirky things within the time restraints. The next step would be to just sign up to a course. So I'm thinking that over at the moment. Definitely editing this video has reignited my inspiration for pottery. I've been really enjoying using the bowls. So another perk was that they are actually food safe. I did use them at a small party we had at our house for our neighbours. They held olives, which is what my teacher actually said I had made. He said I made a great olive bowl. That was awesome. But then I realised actually I'd get more use out of them if I use them to hold trinkets and things that will be easily accessible for me. So at this time, I now just hold items in there. So you just clean it and it's good to go to be storage for anything. So I hold my earrings in there. Sometimes I put art supplies in there. They can really do anything you want. I don't put them in the dishwasher just in case they break because they were made by me and I am scared. But I know that other professional pottery artists do say you can pop things in the dishwasher if you want. They just recommend that you hand wash them, just, I think it gives them longevity. With my flower, I definitely wouldn't put that into the dishwasher because I'd be too afraid that the petals would get damaged somehow. But the other bowl would probably be fine. Yeah. So that's kind of all I wanted to share with you today. I really, really hope you enjoyed coming on this journey with me and experiencing pottery for the very first time. Let me know if you're inspired to try it out for yourself. If you have any tips for me for next time, maybe you've already tried it. How was your experience? Share down below and let's create a lovely creative community that we can help each other with. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a like, and I'll see you again on Monday. Bye.